Let me get to introduce my final guest in this triage of conversation that we're having this morning on News Check. I'll start here on my left. You know him is Dr. Isaac Hassan, a governance expert. Daktari, karibu tena. Then to his left, you also know him. He's called Sami Meli, a political analyst. Sami, karibu tena.
Asante sana.
And of course, the young man at the end, just like me. I'm young like you. Philip Pandey, a youth inclusion advisor. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you very much, Abdi. It's good to be back.
Yes.
Looks like I'm the old one.
Then let me start with the senior. with the senior most. Daktari, yesterday, I'm sure you had an opportunity to see what the president was telling the legislators. Aside from the affordable housing, the cabinet retreat, most of the time, we do get access to it, but we do not get access to it. But yesterday, we had that opportunity to get access to it. You heard what the president was saying. So what were your initial views?
After this yesterday's the president had a discussion with the legislatures. There were mixed reactions in terms of the communication they received from the president. One, there were directives that he has given to his parliamentarians in terms of those ones who are in his backyard, I mean his political party. Those who are in the ruling party. And there are those requests that he has made in terms of fulfilling his promises to Kenya, trying to indicate that he needs support from legislature for him to deliver what he has promised to deliver. So those two reactions, those two events, one is viewed very positively in terms of this developing synergy between the executive and the legislature.
Yes.
In that, when the executive really want to deliver certain projects, they expect the parliamentarians to help them through, so that the necessary legislative acts are put in place in order for the executive to be supported with legislatures, or rather to be supported by policies or acts that will go to support their doings. On the other hand, there's a certain information the president has said. I think you'll allow me to touch a bit on it, because it wasn't very, you know, as an expert on governance, there are things we look at in terms of whether they have replication on the ordinary relationship between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislatures as an independent entity to deliver services for the country. The president insisted again that whichever means, though I'm not going to say whichever means, we will going to deliver affordable house.
Yes.
And parliamentarians looks like they have been a bit given, you know, the red card to tell them that, hey, you need to pass that in order for me to do this, and it is mandatory for you to do it. And that gives a bit of, you know, as a politician, it gives a bit of hinge in terms of whether they have freedom, parliamentarians have freedom to actually reason wisely the way they have been sent to represent their electorates, looking at the interest of their electorate versus what the national, you know, the executive are trying to enforce. So the bottom line is that when you look at it very keenly, he has put his position very well in terms of asking them that for us to deliver, because we have a common goal, for us to deliver to Kenyans, you help us on this aspect, we will also do it this way.
Okay, Dr.
But the one thing that he has added gives a bit that, you know, he will have stayed mute in terms of the housing, affordable housing project, because this thing had taken different twists. One time, sometimes the judiciary has stopped it, suspended it, and called it unconstitutional. He has been given an opportunity to go and constitutionalize it. So he will have just talked about the best way to constitutionalize that process in order for him to deliver. But when he looks at it keenly, that we will still do it. We still feel like there is a bit of element of still saying that we will not want to respect the judicial process, which is a bit unfortunate if we look at it that way.
Okay. Melly, your thoughts?
I would look at this in this way, that the president is the captain of a team. And the team is made up of 3 sections. When you are going to play, you have the defense, the middle field, and the strikers. I see the executive being the strikers, the legislature being the middle field, and then the judiciary being the defense. In our constitution, it's very clear that most of the mandate is given to the president to govern the country. And I see it right with President William Ruto bringing the whole team together for the common good of Mwananchi, because if we go defending every other and not allowing our leadership to think together. The other week he met the judiciary, yes, and there are things they agreed on. Now he's meeting the judiciary, the legislature,
yes.
And then he will be left with the cabinet on strategizing on the way forward. I think this is healthy for a country. And I only found something funny is that our members of parliament looked rather less in what the executive is all about. For example, when he talked about the jobs, the nursing jobs abroad, it was disappointing to note that only 500 had applied out of 2,500, telling them that there were 2,000 more spaces. I think people have taken our president as a joker sometimes. When he is serious, people they don't take him seriously. And he was able to say it yesterday with enough clarity that whatever he is saying is not a joke anymore. Now it's not politics, it is governance. Showing the people the way. Now that there are no jobs within this country, there are jobs outside our borders. And I was happy to hear that there are around 250,000 people who will be going to Germany. They are finalizing on some things that perhaps by the end of June, something will be happening. So it's very disappointing, especially when you walk around this country and you find youth hanging around. We have had the privilege of traveling to foreign countries which are developed. You rarely see the youth around, lying, idling around. For example, if you go right now to Jivanji, you will not find less than 1,000 people just seated there. So I think for the time being, now that there are no jobs within, we can export this labor instead of letting it lie idle in the country. And then once they are out there, I'm sure by the time the country stabilizes and we are able to bring them back, when they are better psychologically, they are better morally, they are better even in the way they are able in ethics, because I'm sure our ethical fabric in this country is torn. Actually, it is in pieces, it is in tatters. So I like what only the president failed to say is that I have a dream. He has a very clear dream to change this country. And I have never been a cheerleader, and I've never used to bootlicking, but now for this one, I think I believe in the president. He's a little bit serious and better than other presidents, and he's telling us the facts as they are. You know, as Kenyans, most of us don't like knowing the things that are going on. Yes, after he has a deputy who's a truthful man. So you are only left with saying the truth, because the truth will come through the next second person. So having him as the person in charge of this country, we would want to hear it from him more and giving us hope. Actually, if you look at the moment, there are so many suicide cases, there are so many homicide cases, there are so many other criminal activities that are going on in the country. Not because they said that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Unfortunately, we have too many idle minds, and perhaps that is why our country is becoming the devil's workshop. Now, I like the Kenyans, and I like them when I'm told we are superpowers online. Even America fears us when we come to nationhood. Touch Kenya and you will see them. In fact, the other day when Malema came and corrected the president here, the Kenyans put aside their differences and told him, Malema, by the way, who are you? Yes, this is our country, and that is the country we want. Youth who are proud of their country. It doesn't matter which position it is taking. It doesn't matter where it is heading. But if you are able to defend your country, country first and then the rest later.
Okay. Pande?
Thanks, Abdi. I think I agree with my brother Meli on the fact that it's needful to occasionally press pause and evaluate the situation and the progress that has been made in implementing certain pillars and promises that we make to ourselves and to the nation. And so it's quite in order that the president is retreating with his government, especially the cabinet and the National Assembly, the Senate, both parliaments to that effect, to really take stock of what they've been able to implement, perhaps ventilate on some challenges, one of them being the passing of the finance bill, particularly on the affordable housing bill that would be coming independently into the National Assembly. It would also be fundamental that in this occasion they are able to again strategize on the next phase of his government, particularly looking at what has happened in the last 2 years, close to 2 years now, with regards to the economic meltdown, the difficulties relating to us as a nation, and looking at the overall framework on the performance of the global economy. Particularly on the housing bill, which is quite key and close to the president's heart. Love him or hate him, the president is somebody that meets his targets, from what we know. His life as a politician indicates that of a focused person who's come all the way from being MP, serving as a 2-term deputy president, making the first stab on the presidency in the history of Kenya and becoming president. And it takes, you know, an extraordinary focus to be that. So when he says that he's going to implement the housing bill and the affordable housing scheme, I want to take that to the bank. One thing that I would say is the affordable housing scheme is not just affordable housing. It's a mix of affordable housing, it's a mix of social housing and market rate housing models. And the focus has been on the affordability and the implementation framework. The case at the courts and going through the appeal process pointed at some weaknesses, which I think then, as our elder here puts it, needed constitutionalization, framing what the president wanted to implement into a legal framework that then works. But as the legal framework works, what is in it for Mwananchi? What is the overall perspective? What is the take? I must agree that last year at the introduction of the finance bill, it was quite a political time. We had a standoff between the opposition and the government then. And much of the debate was taken on the side of political game weights than the objectivity that we needed to assess the affordable housing bill, affordable housing scheme in. Particularly, the Azimio manifesto mentioned affordable housing, and the president has reiterated that. And so the focus then now should be, are we doing it the right way? Is it adding value to our need and the gap for housing? Is it burden us to the people paying for it? And what are the models on how we could make this lighter? How could we make this more acceptable to the people? And how then does it give real-time value to people that are paying for it, wananchi that are looking to be home owners for that matter?
Coming back to Daktari, you know that particular bill, they will continue debating it this afternoon. Do we anticipate political lines to be drawn because we know the position of Azimio?
Definitely. That is the order of the day in our parliamentarians. They always play that such a game. Before just I go into that one, I think we need to understand that President Ruto manifesto and the goodwill that he has for this nation is very clear. The challenge he has is the people he's placing somewhere. Competency of some of the people that he places in some of the offices will going to let him down. And that's the biggest challenge. Why am I saying that? If you go to these offices and see the kind of people who have been placed there. For example, yesterday I went to an office and you find the CEO of that office. He comes and you come and see him. Outrightly, someone tells you, yeah, you guys have to say what you want very fast, or else I'll ask you guys to leave. You know, this is that's unprofessional. These are kind of incompetent. Some people have been given to offices, and they need to serve this nation, and they need to represent the president. And if each one of them don't represent the president the way it is required, then definitely the president is prone to fail. And therefore, I think as time goes on, the president needs to look at the kind of people he's placing in offices who are supposed to champion his agenda. Otherwise, we will end up in failing all the things that are required to do. Coming to the parliament, we know very well the nature of our parliamentarians in such a way that they are always either pro something or opposite. So we have the opposition and the majority in the House. And agendas are usually discussed based on who are the majorities. I know very well much of the information that they are supposed to internalize and look at it keenly. And of course, incorporating into what the people or the public, in terms of public participation, has been gathered during their recess. I mean, during recess, they were doing a lot of public participation in regards to the same issue that has created unconstitutionality when they were doing it. And what we are looking at is that when this is tabled, I know there will be clear demarcation in terms of opposers and proposers. But why is it like that? It's because it's the nature of our politics, that even if there is a good thing that the government is tabling, the opposition will always say no, regardless of whether those issues will going to directly benefit their electorate. They look, we are fancy or fantastic, you know, way of dealing with things, because we have masters. Who are our masters? Every politician has his political party leader, who is his master. Instead of looking at being their master and the center stage of the person who is supposed to be looked into as the electorate, they look at it who is their political leader. For example, leader of the opposition, leader of the government, the party for the government, and every one of them will not put any logic into the discussion. What they are going to do is that each of them will going to defend their side. And of course, Parliament, because of the nature of the way they do their work, is that they are going to vote. And when they vote, the majority will have their way. They always say, minority have their say, but the majority will always have their way, according to our... And the only option that Kenyans will be left with, if issues that they have raised during the public participation has not been addressed, then is to go to, again, the corridors of justice to see whether they are able to be served with justice in terms of what indeed their concerns are and how best they can be addressed. And that way, if the parliamentarians would have taken their time and look at it in a very sober mind and think about exactly what will be the implication of what we are passing, how will it going to benefit our electorates, as well as how they will going to upheld things which are already of importance to the electorate, then issues of corridors of justice will not arise. But I know very well that when things are tabled in Parliament, and we know it is coming from the government side or from the opposition side, depending on how their interest will be, those will going to be, will be based on who are the minority and who are the majority, and each of them will going to drive their will.
Mainly, some of the issues even raised in the Finance Act that was talked about last year before it was even passed, it was the most aftersought bill that was before. Now it is an act. The issues that arose from that particular Finance Act is what Dr. is talking about here, public participation, because I'm informed we do not even have a proper guideline to guide what public participation is and how it's supposed to be conducted and who is supposed to conduct it in which manner. And also the Auditor General, that is Nancy Gathungu, gave out a report last year in terms of how these public participations are being carried out and in which form can they be carried out. So the issue of public participation is very, very crucial. And we have witnessed on a number of occasions that whatever is said is never included in that particular bill or report or even a motion. So do we anticipate that this will be different?
I think our leadership has not understood one thing. The first element of the Constitution vests all, it talks about the sovereignty of the people and the supremacy of the Constitution. That anything that contravenes the Constitution and not endorsed by the people is outrightly wrong. And that is why the government is losing so many cases in court, because at some point they don't understand one thing, that the supremacy of the Constitution and the sovereignty of the people, mamlaka, yes, all the power is vested in the people of Kenya, and they only exercise it through their elected leaders. So the leadership should be able, I think it was part of the clauses that wanted to be enacted before the full implementation of the Constitution. Unfortunately, it has been overtaken by events. But any legislation coming, whether it's a finance bill, whether it's a small legislation on housing, it has to involve the people. The biggest unfortunate thing is that we don't have the village barazas, we don't have the ward barazas, we don't have the constituency barazas, we don't have the county barazas where we can sit and agree. Because I don't think the need of Nairobi County is the same as the need of my home county, that is Trans Nzoia. Yes, what I will push from Trans Nzoia, for example, will not be the same as what is pushed from Nairobi. And if everything is done in Nairobi, at some point there are some constituents, members of parliament, who never visit their constituencies. If you take calls from Kenyans right now, they'll tell you they saw others after being sworn in. That is the last time they saw them. So anything that is being passed in this country or being enacted that will affect the lives of the people first has to come from the people. And it is simple. You start by engaging the people on the ground, and then come slowly upwards until you get to the regional, and then have a national convention and say this can go through. Unfortunately, again, is that the biggest thing that is that happens nowadays is that you find such a fora taken in a big hotel where the common mwananchi cannot enter. Yes, the security men at the gate tell them off before they even come in. If you are dressed in a suit like me, at least they'll respect you and allow you in. But how much content do I carry in? There are people who are very knowledgeable and in the villages that are not involved in these issues. They are retired people who are in the villages. Perhaps they can no longer even afford fare to such venues. Okay. But they are rich in the contributions to this country. Okay, so I think we stick to the first chapter of the Constitution, the sovereignty of the people and the supremacy of the Constitution. Okay, we are pressed for time. Pandey, as we're talking about the expediency, the President even told the legislators, did they get the message that time is indeed of the essence?
I think they did, and I must say that President needs more help than he's getting. I looked at the leader of majority in the National Assembly confessing that they are not able to mobilize numbers to sit in the National Assembly to debate and pass bills. And that would be a very bad sign on facilitating the President's agenda, especially on anchoring development on legislation. So Parliament needs to mobilize itself, not just on the government side, but even on the opposition side, so that we have quality debate in Parliament and generate content that then reinforces our development. The urgency of now is an ongoing concern elsewhere and everywhere within government, within institutions that are implementing programs, because all these programs and projects are time-based and time-bound. So you see the president wanting to achieve certain promises in the first term. Parliament must go with that agency. But then the other thing that I would also mention is, what options do we have? For example, if we face another season of difficulty with the housing, affordable housing bill, then where else could we get help and reprieve? In this country, there is something that we have failed to talk about constructively, and that is the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company. It is already providing a financial framework through which young, middle-aged, and Kenyans of low income are able to own homes. And the target of this company that was put into force in 2018 is to support people of low income and middle income to own homes. And the threshold is that you must not be earning, I think, above 200,000 shillings per month. Now, this company is already working with 10 banks, 9 banks, and 11 SACCOs. We have well over 20,000 SACCOs in this country. 25% of the fund is owned by the government of Kenya, 23% by development financing institutions, and then 44% by banks, and only 8% by SACCOs. So my thinking would be, how are we able to utilize the framework of the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company and bring the SACCOs to a majority, so that a majority of this fund is owned by SACCOs? Then what this means is that we are spreading the base and equipping Kenyans that are not covered within income earning, because the contention of the bill is, we are paying for it, we don't need the houses. I'm earning 1 million shillings or above. I probably bear a huge weight on this, but I have my own home, I have facilitated and organized myself. How do we build capacities of cooperatives and people at the bottom of the pyramid to be part of the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company scheme and be able to own houses? Okay. And how are we able to leverage on the legislative framework that Parliament is providing in, for example, amending this the act that brought into force the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company, so that if we don't go well with the affordable housing bill, we still have a fallback plan. But I would dare say, Abdi, and you can quote me, that this bill this time will pass, and I believe that the implementation would go, but we need to be a little more concerned about the acceptability and keep on rallying support for that which is good and work on that which is still thorny.
We have a few minutes. Let me start with Daktari. Daktari, there is another issue that even came up in that particular meeting, supporting the ODM leader Raila Odinga, who's the Azimio principal for the AU position. As you respond and you're giving your final remarks, respond to that particular issue, but what are the political implications of that as well?
Abdulaziz, I think that's a very crucial thing that people are discussing now, and it's creating a lot of debate. There are two things that surrounds the issue of the AU Commission chair being fronted for the opposition leader Raila. I think as a Kenyan, when such positions, regional or continental or international positions arise and Kenyans show interest, it is important that Kenyans unite and support that process, because it takes this country to another level in terms of when you are the head of an international institution, continental or an international institution, Kenyan is placed somewhere, because you don't leave your nation. You still be a Kenyan, but representing that country. I remember the current one,
Musa Faki
is from Chad. Chad is a small continent, desert with nothing much to talk about. But after he has been placed there, Chad has become more popular than any other nation, because their own was the head of AU, and therefore at every one time people will ask, where do you come from? And people are going to tell you, yes, indeed, I'm from Chad and this is my... So I think I congratulate the president for supporting Raila's interest. If that is the position that he wants, I think it will be a very good thing, because that shows that the president has put aside his political affairs, and he says, because it is not internally and it is externally, Kenya is for all of us, and therefore we need to support the person who is going forward. In terms of political implication, that's
as you're winding up 30 seconds.
That's the point that you want me to say, is that in terms of political implementation, implication rather, is that there will be a huge gap, because Raila is known to be populist. You know, he gathers crowds so much. And therefore, we are not very sure whether the opposition now will you know, put down their tools, and we may not have a lot of check and balance for the government. And I'm fearing if Kalonzo, who is currently talking about, you know, recently he mentioned that he want the outcome of the committee, the Bomas committee report be implemented. And as politicians, as governance, we look at it from a different perspective. He want that implemented. Raila goes to AU, and then he occupies the new office that is the leader of the opposition. I don't know whether that will going to work, but that is his way of thinking. So politics is a game of you know, chess, like. So I think he's positioning himself, but all the thing I'm fearing is that we may not get the crowd maker like Raila.
Yeah, because
time is not on our side.
Yeah, time is not on our side, because we're literally being kicked out. Let me start with you, Meli. Quickly, 30 seconds, tafadhali.
Yes.
Your final remarks on that.
Yes, I think for the chair of AU, Raila Amolo Odinga is overqualified for the position. I also support his bid. The only unfortunate thing, as Daktari has said, is that he will leave some political orphans around. He has always carried them around, and I'm wondering who will carry them as they move on. Because, and we'll not say he has left big shoes behind, because he's going with them. So unfortunately, they'll have to walk on their flip-flops until they get to learn what Raila used to do. So Baba, having led the infrastructure part of the AU, he's qualified. I think he has enough friendship around Africa, and if President William Ruto supports him and he goes out to do the shuttle diplomacy we usually do, I'm sure, being the crowd puller himself also, and also a good marketer, I think the product is marketable across Africa, and if the marketer goes out, Raila will get this seat.
Pande, quickly.
Thank you, Abdi. And joining my colleagues in reinforcing that, there is no doubt on the capacity of the Kenyan opposition leader, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, in leading the AU Commission. And I affirm my support for him. I thank the President for rallying the support for him. We must accept that there is a time that a nation must come together to do something jointly. Like we sing the national anthem together, like we pledge our loyalty to the flag. This is a moment to pledge the loyalty to the support for winning the opposition, the AU Commission chair, because it is the first, not for Kenya, it is the first for the East African community, and it's fundamental that we bring it home.
Okay, thank you so much.
And it should not be forgotten that the three wise men came from the East. So
there's
one.
We don't have time. Let me start with Philip Pande.
I still have one comment.
Because they will be literally be kicked off on air. Yes. Philip Pande, a youth inclusion advisor, Sami Meli, political analyst, and finally, Daktari here, governance expert. Thank you so much for making time for us. Of course, we are pressed for time. When I need to hand it over to my colleague Khalid Abdullahi, who will be leading the Kurunzi section. So don't go too far. My name is Abdiaziz Hashim, and that is Lensa Odingo, if I'm not wrong, my co-anchor for this morning session. And of course, don't go too far. Khalid Abdullahi is up next with Kurunzi Mashinani.